Welcome to Wealth Beyond the White Coat, a show where we dive deep into the world of financial freedom for dentists and medical professionals. I'm your host, Darren Flesher, a dentist with a passion for uncovering the strategies that lead to a prosperous life beyond the office. Every episode will explore the avenues of alternative investing, tax mitigation, and secrets to build wealth that the textbooks don't teach you. Whether you're looking to enhance your financial literacy, discover new investment opportunities, or simply find a better way to manage your money, this is the place where your financial health is the core of our conversations. Welcome to Wealth Beyond the White Coat, where your journey to financial clarity and freedom begins. Welcome back to Wealth Beyond the White Coat for part 2 of our conversation with Brannon Moncrief. If you missed part 1, Brannon, CEO of McLerran and Associates, walked us through the recent shifts in dental practice transitions, especially around the rise of DSOs and private equity. We also explored how dentists can increase their practice's value and the key considerations when planning a sale. In this part, we'll dig into the critical role of an interdisciplinary team, the process and timeline of a practice transition, and practical steps dentists can take to prepare for the future. So let's dive back in. So you mentioned we've been in this cycle, we're in post-COVID now, things are different than pre for obviously a multitude of reasons. How do you feel like practice valuations have been impacted up to now, and where do you see this going in the near future as far as multiples of EBITDA and what they're willing to pay as far as amount of cash at close and all that kind of stuff? Where do you see us going here?
So practice valuations in the private buyer world have been pretty consistent, somewhere in the range of 70 to 90% of annual revenue, somewhere in the ballpark of 2 times net cash flow before owner compensation. That's really stood the test of time, over the past 20 years. Don't expect that to change remarkably moving forward. Valuations definitely peaked coming out of COVID in 21 and 22. They've softened a little bit more recently, but not for Class A assets. If you build an incredible business that's profitable, has a great reputation, a great team, a great culture, that business is always going to have substantial value. So we've seen practices trading for 7 to 8.5 times EBITDA over the past 18 to 24 months, despite the fact that the macroeconomic environment has not been super favorable in regards to elevated interest rates and constrained capital markets. So really haven't seen a fall off on valuations on Class A assets. I would say it's more so the Class B, Class C assets. If you've got a long story to tell or messy financials, or you're dragging an unsuccessful location with you to market, you've got 1 or 2 successful locations, but then you've got a third location that's not performing well. Those deals that require a longer story, the more you have to unpack, less demand, lower valuations on those practices. I think if interest rates come down substantially, if the capital markets open back up, if we see quite a few recaps happen here over the next 12 to 18 months, the DSO market is going to look more like it did back in 21 and 22 in the back half of 25 going into 26. So I think valuations are going to remain strong. Getting that 10, 12x valuation, that might be tough, but getting somewhere in the 7 to 9x range, I think those offers are still going to be out there, and there's going to be plenty of demand and buyers at the table.
Hey, I just want to interrupt real quick and say thanks for listening to the podcast. If you didn't know, we have an associated Facebook group also called Wealth Beyond the White Coat. Over there, you can ask your questions, get feedback from group members, and have a close community of medical professionals who are likely interested in the same things as you. Whether it's alternative investing, tax mitigation, ways to keep more of your money, or even protect your assets, we're going to discuss those things in the group. Additionally, we have a private investors club called Legacy Point. As a member, you'll get exclusive discounts to preferred vendors, and you'll get access to private investments that you'll find nowhere else. Whether it's hotels, apartments, oil and gas, equipment rental, you name it, we'll be discussing those details and offering those investments to members only inside Legacy Point Group. If you want to learn more about that, please contact me or simply email info, I-N-F-O, at legacypointgroup.com or go to the website legacypointgroup.com. And Wealth Beyond the White Coat podcast listeners get an exclusive discount if you use the code WealthBeyond That's all caps, all together, Wealth Beyond at checkout. I'd love to have you in the group, and I'd love to see you making more passive income as you move towards financial freedom, whether it's freedom to retire early, spend more time with your family, go on more vacations, or just do more of what you love while you're in the operatory. I'd love to see you doing that as part of Legacy Point. So here's to improving your financial health.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Obviously, a lot of people are always considering that. So it's good to hear that's still a strong market moving forward. I want to ask you a two-parter here, mostly because I think the answers to both of these might play off each other a little bit. I've seen on your website that your team is a mix of CPAs, attorneys, brokers. How important is it for dentists to have an interdisciplinary team when navigating a sale? And what are the roles that each of those people play? And then the other question is, a lot of dentists feel overwhelmed by the transition process. So could you walk us through maybe a timeline of a practice transition and maybe some of the milestones that they should anticipate along the way?
Great question. So I do think it's very important to have a well-versed team, which is why you see on our website attorneys, CPAs, former bankers, former brokers. We've got a couple of guys that actually worked for private equity-backed DSOs buying practices that have now stepped on our team to the sell side. Who knows the tricks of the trade better than people that used to buy practices from dentists? So I think experience matters, having a well-versed team, because there's so much involved in doing this process right. From the front end, educating doctors about all the different levers involved in these transactions, all the different options available, filtering all the bullshit and all the noise that's out there in the marketplace, and really breaking it down brass tacks. What's real? What's not real? What's legitimate? What's not legitimate? And then doing an accurate EBIT analysis and valuation, doing some economic modeling to show the docs, hey, under certain deal structures, at a certain valuation, this is how things are likely going to play out at close, along the way, and then at a recapitalization event. And then having the relationship with the DSOs, even though we're on the sell side, having a strong working relationship, a strong reputation, being credible with the DSOs, so that when we take an opportunity to market, they pick up the phone, they're excited about it, and they're going to put their best foot forward. And then navigating all the different aspects of entertaining interest, offers, negotiating, legal agreements, and this the minutia involved with the transition. So I'll walk you through at a high level what the DSO affiliation process looks like. So starts with that casual 30-minute discovery call to get to know each other, talk about your goals, your why, learn a little bit about your practice, and decide, does it make sense to do a deep dive, to do evaluation, to do an EBIT analysis, to do some of that economic modeling? Does it make sense to get you educated? And if so, great. We're going to do the valuation. We're going to spend 2 to 3 weeks together doing a deep dive, getting to know you and your business, quantifying your options and what's possible. And then from there, it's choose your own adventure, right? Does it make sense to pursue a private practice sale? Does it make sense to pursue a DSO affiliation or private equity partner? Or does it make sense to just keep your head down and stay the course and then maybe revisit the conversation 2-3 years down the road? And if so, what are the things, what are the weaknesses, what are the strengths of your business? What are the things that you need to focus on and tweak leading up to eventually taking the business to market, and then staying in touch along the way and providing some guidance and coaching there? But let's assume that you decide, all right, went through the valuation, the EBIT analysis, economically this makes sense for me. My why makes sense to go to market and pursue a DSO affiliation. We'll sign a listing agreement authorizing us to take the practice to market. We'll build a marketing deck in a digital data room where we put all of your data, and then we'll start reaching out to multiple DSOs, typically somewhere in the range of 10 to 20 DSOs, depending on the type of practice that you have, your geography, your why, the characteristics of your business. So we will put the practice out to bid. So valuation conversation, private conversation between us and you, just to set expectations on valuation and deal structure. But we use what we call a blind bid process when we take a practice to market. We're essentially going to create a bidding war among as many DSOs as possible. put the practice out to market. It's going to take probably 2 to 3 weeks for buyers to express interest and ask questions. And then we're going to set up typically Zoom calls or in-person meetings where you have the opportunity to meet the leadership of all the DSOs. They're going to have some questions for you, getting to know you, understanding your why, trying to figure out if you'd be a good partner, a good fit for their organization. But diligence is a two-way street. We're going to give you a list of 30 questions to ask every DSO because you need to vet them now more than ever, given that it's a bifurcated market of the haves and have-nots. Some DSOs are in trouble. Some DSOs are thriving. They're not all created equal. There's a lot of questions that you need to ask to figure out who's going to be the right partner for your practice. So we go through that initial round of meetings. DSOs know that they're on a clock. They have to submit an offer by a certain date. Once all offers come in, we're going to sit down and typically say, hey, offers aside, economics aside, who do you like the most? Or is there a pecking order from a fit perspective? And then we'll focus on the economics with the goal of marrying the absolute best negotiated offer with the DSO out of the group that you feel is the right fit for your particular business. We sign a letter of intent, and then we loop in CPA, financial advisor, attorney, because then we have to talk about navigating the legal agreements, talking about what you're going to do with the money when you get that check, and then navigating the diligence process. So we've done a lot of diligence leading up to taking the practice to market. The DSOs do some initial diligence before they make an offer. But once you sign a letter of intent, they do what's called a quality of earnings process. And it's essentially a deep dive, either internally at the DSO or by a third-party accounting firm, to confirm that all the information we've given them and the EBITDA figure that they bid off of is accurate. And that's where DSOs can tend to play some games. So that's a big part of having financial analysts and a CPA on our team to defend the EBITDA throughout the process so that there's not what we call a retrade where the DSO comes in and says, hey, we bid on an EBITDA of 500,000, but actually your EBITDA is 400,000. You're at a 7x multiple, so we need to knock $700,000 off the price before we close. We're going to prevent that at all costs because of the upfront diligence and then defending the EBITDA throughout the process. So I think it's important to make the point there. I feel like all day long what we do is argue with DSOs about EBITDA. EBITDA is way more important than the multiple. Every dollar of EBITDA worth $7 to $9 in value. And it's the number one way that I would say DSOs are predatory and opportunistic is to try to convince doctors, especially off-market unsolicited offers, that your EBITDA is lower than it actually is. So a big part of what we do is control the narrative regarding EBITDA, pre-LOI and post-LOI, defending it during the diligence process. Navigating the diligence process, navigating the legal agreements, negotiating both the big points and the finer points of the deal and the legal agreements, and then navigating integration and closing. We're involved every step of the way. We're the quarterback of the process. Start to finish, you're talking 5 to 6 months. From the time we engage to do the valuation to the time the money hits the bank. Valuation, 2 to 3 weeks. Marketing the practice, 6 to 8 weeks. Closing, typically anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. 5 to 6 months start to finish. And the private buyer process, a little different. Normally also takes about 6 months if you've got an elite practice in a good geography that's going to be very marketable. Not so much a competitive bid process in that world because there's just so much goodwill involved. You don't want to create that type of bidding war environment in a private buyer deal. But we're also the quarterback of that process, and it moves in a similar fashion. Valuation, to marketing, to negotiating an LOI, to financing, diligence, integration, and closing. So it looks similar to the DSO process, but you don't typically have 10, 20 buyers at the table simultaneously in a private buyer deal comparative to a DSO.
Hey, I just wanted to interrupt the show real quick and tell you about an exclusive member discount for Legacy Point group members. The company is called Gelt, and they're both tax planning and tax preparation. We connected because their CEO actually comes from a family of physicians, and he understands the financial complexities that healthcare professionals face these days. Legacy Point is honored to partner with Gelt because it's our shared mission to empower successful professionals with optimal tax and financial outcomes. For your 20% discount off financial planning and tax preparation and priority access with their onboarding, become a member over at legacypointgroup.com.
So deal.
That's awesome. I think people are going to get a lot of value out of that answer and you laying that out for people. I really appreciate you sharing that. As we wrap up here, I've got a few kind of less granular inner workings questions. Just want to ask big picture stuff for you. I know you've worked with a lot of dentists throughout your career. What's been maybe one of the most rewarding aspects of your work? And I know we're a challenging bunch. What's been one of your, what do you find most challenging working with dentists?
Great questions. Most rewarding is we're helping people monetize their legacy and one of their most valuable assets. And it's that it's financially impactful, yes, but it's also very emotionally impactful. And we treat everybody as if they're family and treat every practice like it's our own. So they don't all go extremely smoothly, right? It's a people business. It's a complicated business. It's not a linear process. There's not just a switch on the wall that we can flip on and off when it's time to transition the business to somebody else. But it's really getting to know the people and helping them navigate what is a life-changing and career-changing moment. I think that's really impactful and very rewarding. And we've got a great team and a great process that has a high propensity for success and fulfillment, both for the doctor, the staff, the patients, and ourselves. So we love that part of it. I think the most challenging part is one, a lot of people don't prepare and they call us the day they're ready to sell. And for some people, that's fine because they've done a great job of managing their business and they have a Class A asset to sell. But for others, we have to have some difficult conversations because if you wait till the day you're ready to sell, it is what it is. I've got to deal with what's in front of me. I haven't had the ability to educate and impact the value of the business and the marketability of business along the way. But I think it's that emotional component that as much as it makes the job enjoyable and rewarding, it also makes it really challenging. Because as I mentioned before, we all have our personality flaws and we're put under a lot of stress. Those flaws tend to be amplified. And being patient, having empathy is something that I've definitely learned is important in navigating the world that we live in day to day. So the people are what makes life amazing and also makes life hell sometimes. And I would say oftentimes it's not our client. Oftentimes it's not the buyer. Oftentimes it's a know-it-all attorney or some CPA that has no idea what the hell they're doing. Somebody that's not really educated, that's got a really loud voice that tries to impact the transaction and oftentimes impacts it in a very negative way for the real stakeholders, which is the buyer and seller.
Financial freedom is about making the right moves at the right time. As practice owners, we often reach a point where growth stalls. Instead of maintaining at that plateau, consider cashing in now, putting that money to work for you, letting it double, triple, or even more over the course of your career, and then go pursue more of what you love to do. This is exactly what I did with my friend JW, a dental practice broker who found the perfect partner for my practice, maximized its value, and optimized the deal terms. He offers a free valuation for those considering a sale. If you want an introduction and the same red carpet treatment shown to me by my friend JW, email me at darren@legacypointgroup.com. That's DEREN @legacypointgroup.com. And I'll be happy to connect you with JW to start your journey to financial independence.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there's a lot of life and circumstances that come into play here. So yeah, you're right. There's a lot of factors that can contribute to a positive or a negative outcome. Can you also maybe share a success story where you guys helped somebody navigate maybe a particularly tricky transition? Maybe it came out better than expected, or you helped them out of a bad situation. I'm sure you've got some war stories, so I'd love for you to maybe share one that turned even more positive than when you entered into the relationship with a client.
I think the hardest ones are obviously when we're dealing with a death and disability, where we're helping a spouse and the dentist is not available. to help transition their legacy. And we've done a ton of those. I prefer for you to plan early and not be in that situation, but I would say those are some of the most rewarding deals that we're involved in, even though there's a lot of emotion involved and it's very complex. The stories that I like to tell that where we feel like we've really delivered an insane amount of value are when we start talking to a dentist that's got a large practice and they've been entertaining an unsolicited offer from a DSO. And whether it's their CPA, their financial advisor, their attorney says, hey, timeout. You've only talked to this one buyer. I know your buddy sold to them and has convinced you that it's in your best interest to sell to this particular DSO, but you need to talk to Brannon. You need to talk to the people over at McLerran. And we have that initial conversation, and the doctors typically has some trepidation about who we are and what role we play, and if we're really going to be able to provide value, because they already like the DSO that's at the table and they feel that they have an attractive offer in hand. And we try to let them know that, hey, the first offer is typically not the best offer. And if you don't have competition, you're likely going to leave a lot of money on the table. And because you don't have perspective or optionality, you run the risk that DSO might have been the right fit for your buddy, but you're a different person with a different why, maybe not the best fit for you. And I tell the story, it just comes to mind about older dentist outside of Atlanta, successful practice, get an offer in hand from a legitimate DSO at $6.2 million. He was 5 years away from retiring, wanted some help with managing the business. The business was growing rapidly, and he didn't want to do it on his own, wanted to lock in his exit strategy. So offer in hand, legitimate DSO at $6 million. His attorney said, hey, call McLerran, hit pause on the conversation with that DSO, see what they think your practice is worth before you accept that offer. We did the valuation. Valuation came in at $9 million. So that's a pretty big delta, right? Almost a $3 million delta comparative to the off-market offer. Dennis wisely engaged us as his sell-side advisor to take the practice to the open market, took the practice to the open market, got 6 offers, and it ultimately traded for just over $10 million. Guess who it sold? To the original buyer that had made an off-market offer at $6.2 million. All we did was walk in the door and inform them that they were a competitive situation, and that, by the way, the EBITDA was higher than the number they were working with. So our client got an almost $4 million premium simply by hiring us. That's a game changer. That's life-changing for that client. So I get still tell stories like that all the time when we list a practice with a doctor who had an off-market offer, and it ultimately sells to that same DSO for $1 million, $2 million, $3 million more, simply by following our process and holding their feet to the fire. So that's an economic win. I love those for our clients just as much as the emotional wins.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great story. All right, last question from me. On a more personal note, what excites you about the future of the dental industry, and how are you guys at McLerran and Associates preparing yourselves to evolve with it?
Great question. So obviously the evolution of private equity and the DSO involvement in the industry has been a shot in the arm for our business. And really, it's been something new, something exciting. And just as I went through that example, there's a lot of value that we can drive for clients. And we get excited about that. If we can't deliver value, we won't take a doctor on as a client. So we're leveraging technology and building an amazing valuation platform as well as an amazing team. What gets me most excited is identifying great talent within the dental industry and figuring out a way to incorporate them into our team and our process to deliver a better outcome for the client. And our team has doubled over the past couple of years, and we're going to continue to grow and expand. So that's what has me the most excited. The more talented my team, the bigger our team, the wider our reach, the more people we can help. And making an impact on the industry, an industry that's undergoing a tremendous amount of change, that's what gets me out of bed every day.
Awesome. Yeah, that is exciting. All right, so where can our listeners find more about you or McLerran and Associates, and how can they get in touch if they want to start planning their own transition?
So I always give out my personal contact information. All I do all day long is talk to large practice owners. So I will actually give you my cell phone and you can call or text me.
All right.
512-660-8505. My email is Brannon, Brannon, at dentaltransitions.com. And check out our website, dentaltransitions.com. It's got a lot of conversations just like this, webinars, articles. We're huge on education. So would love the opportunity if any of your listeners want to schedule a discovery call, shoot me a text, shoot me an email. I'm always available. Look forward to getting to know you.
Awesome, man. Thanks for coming on. Everybody, that was Brannon Moncrief of McLerran and Associates.
Thanks, Darren. Take care.
Thanks for listening in to Wealth Beyond the White Coat. Your time and attention mean a lot to us. If you found value in today's episode, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform and share it with your colleagues and friends. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more professionals like you striving for financial freedom. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your financial health. Thank you for joining us on this journey to wealth beyond the white coat.